Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Woman Unbroken by Alexandra Fleeter, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. It took me 3 days of opening every door and window to chase out the dead air that had been trapped in the house for the past few years. Since it was January, the air crept in, welcoming at first in its freshness, though as the sun began to set, it became breath from the Arctic. While I was desperate for fresh air, fresh anything, opening up the house left me filled with dread that he, my husband, would show up in a threatening rage. As I unpacked all of my old life with him, I thought, you stay away from us. You don't show up with your big truck and your pocket knife and your loud voice and your threats. You stay away from us for good now. I repeated this mantra for the first 3 days as if to make it a prophecy. At the same time, Fergie investigated every inch of the house that was brand new to her with curious sniffs and feeling around with her long white whiskers. Get used to it, Ferg. This is home for now, and who knows for how long. In our first few weeks in the house, Fergie and I lived like hermits. We spoke to no one but each other in soft voices. We barely walked outside except to get the mail, even though we knew what came was not for us. Mostly, it was just letters for father from lunatic fans or angry victims. The only times I left the house were to buy necessary provisions, mostly cat food and bread and butter for toast. Leaving the house in those weeks was no easy feat. It involved a complicated process of first checking to make sure Fergie was accounted for, usually sleeping in a circle on the massive couch. Then checking that all the windows and doors were shut and locked, and that I'd remember to wedge the stick of wood in the track of the sliding glass door in addition to locking it. Then all the yellowed curtains had to be drawn so that no one could see in. After I felt certain that the window and door process was complete, I'd slowly open the door and stand with it ajar listening. I listened for the sounds of cars, of music, of voices, anything that seemed out of place in our desolate canyon. Instead, I always heard the usual canyon noises, the wind sliding down the hills, rustling the sagebrush, coyotes yipping, searching for prey. Satisfied by these wild noises, I would shut the door behind me, quickly locking the top and bottom locks, and make a mad dash for my cream 380 SL that Rod bought me for my 25th birthday. Sadly, this car was much more conspicuous than suited me at this point in time. It wasn't the fact that it was a convertible or a Mercedes-Benz, but that it had front and back vanity plates that read, "Rich Girl." If it weren't for this, I would have had a much better chance of not being recognized on my frantic drives down the slalom road to Pacific Coast Highway, PCH as we locals called it, to Trancas Market. Whether I was actually recognized or not, I could never say for sure. At the market, I always kept my sunglasses on, which meant that I could not make these trips during the dark, not that I would have anyway. I would hide in the aisles with the least traffic. Usually the house cold cleaner aisle was the emptiest. At the checkout stand, I would bury my face in the tabloids, wondering if anyone was watching me under the fluorescent lights, repeating to myself, "I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here." Instead of leaving the house, we stayed inside and lay on the couch most days. I would lie in a semi-reclined position with Fergie stretched out lengthwise on top of me, purring, black and white long tufts of fur moving up and down to the rhythm of her breath. When we weren't on the couch in my old sleeping bag watching old movies, some starring my mother or directed by my father, Fergie would prop herself in the middle of the perfectly mid-century mirrored coffee table and obsessively groom. While Fergie picked at phantom fleas, I compulsively looked at my hair in the mirror, spreading the stringy strands against my pale face through my fingers, and noticed that some strands skipped gray and went straight to white.